Okay, so this is our story. I'm sorry, I can't see you very well. And so I was asked to talk to you about purpose. Probably some of you are already opponents to the idea, and some of you are purpose activists, because it's something everybody is talking about, but I'm not sure we talk about the same thing. So we can say sometimes it's about business and customers and marketing. Sometimes it's about employees. Sometimes it's about CSR and sustainable development. Sometimes it's state itself. In France, with the Loi Pacte, we've been talking a lot about this idea. The FT recently in September said purpose was necessary to save capitalism, so that's a nice idea. And sometimes it's also about God, but I'm not going to talk about God today. So probably we're all like Arlette in that bridge, not knowing very well what we're talking about, so I'm going to try to make it a little more clear. I would say that it's a flexible concept, and so sometimes more about business, and it comes from business concerns. Sometimes it comes from CSR and sustainable ideas. Sometimes it's mainly and sometimes only a communication matter. And sometimes it's about action, really. Probably each of you has got an experience on one of these quarters. Of course, I would like to highlight and celebrate the B Corp arrival in France, because the very nice movement around B Corp is that purpose is at the core of the system, and I think that can inspire lots of us. So I like this definition because it's not coming from CSR and not from this part of the map, but it's a little bit long. I'm going to read it with you. So the company's purpose is a bold affirmation of its reason for being in business, the driving force that enables it to define its true brand and create its desired culture. And in my opinion, CSR can come in that movement. We've got lots of people to get convinced yet, and we will decide all together in the end if it's inspiring or overreaching. So maybe the idea with Sabri was that I would tell our story and get into concrete situations. So how and when did purpose knock at our door? So I'm not sure if everybody here is French or Belgian or German or Dutch, but Thalys is a train, a high-speed rail train. Oh. We are operating in 4 European countries. So this is the map. And we are a small company. Sometimes we are compared to DBS and SNCF, which is very nice for us, but we are 600 people all together, including train drivers and train managers. So we're a small company or a middle-range company, but we're not a big company. That's very important to me, because purpose is not only for people who've got time to do it. I've got some colleagues in the room, and I can say we don't have so much time like you. So what is also important is that we were born out of 4 state railway companies, which is a little bit special, because we're a private company out of public companies. So you need to find your own way to define the reason why you're there. The initial idea was very clear. The initial idea was to foster and to facilitate a European mobility. So, of course, it's a very clear purpose. But in 2016, it was not enough for us. And we needed to boost up our purpose and to foster our energies, because our context was fast changing. Probably some of you remember the 2015 year. For Thalys, it was a very special year because we had an attack on board, and then we had a terrorist attack in Paris with a blackout in Brussels, and then a terrorist attack in Brussels. And trends were not very good for tourism and for economical trips between our countries. But there were also structural changes that we needed to face. We were going to competition. We were an autonomous railway company from 2015. Before that, we were a marketing subsidiary. So many things had changed for us. Initially, we had this idea of we were the lab of our shareholders. Then in 2015 and 16, innovation was everywhere. And to innovate, you needed to be, it was far more easy when you were big. And when you had resources rather than when you were 600 people on 4 countries. So it was time for us to project into the future and to foster cooperation and to enhance, not create, because we were already not an agile company, but something like that. But it was time for us to boost up all this energy we had inside. And to us, it was very clear that we needed to put together business strategy and corporate vision and all this idea of cooperation together. And that the real question was why? But we wanted to link the why with the how, because when you're small, you cannot take time to link the why with the how. So we already had many things. We already had business plan. We already had values. We already had an ethic charter. A brand signature, we already had all that stuff. And all of them were very nice and very consistent together. But we felt that we needed something to pull everything together, and if possible, in a few words. This is Joël Robuchon, for those who wouldn't know. And he said, la cuisine simple, so simple cook is whatever more complex to do. And here are the Shadok, who say that if there is no solution, there is no problem, so maybe you can stop there. So we decided to be a little bit more optimistic and to try to find a solution, and that's how we try to do it. So when you're talking about purpose, projet d'entreprise, raison d'être, all those things, I think the first challenge is to find the right method to start with. And I'm not going to tell exactly how we did that. I will highlight 3 or 4 conclusions we made in the end of the process. And I think that the first recommendation I can give is to find the efficient balance between top-down and bottom-up, between leadership and co-construction, collaboration. Why? Because of course you cannot lead this kind of process top down. It's a nonsense in 2015 or 20. And at the same time, if you don't bring leadership and vision, the pitfall is that you're risking the lowest common denominator, and that's just awful. It's all those purpose you can read sometimes in the newspaper, and you say, why did they spend so much time to do that? And so I think it's always a difficulty to mix all the level of thinking together. Second advice, I'm sorry, but there is no word in English for that. I think it's a French concept. I think it's very important to authorize yourself to tâtonner. So sorry for the non-French speakers. Because I haven't met anyone who could tell me a story with a very, linear and easy way, very clear at each step, etc. I think it's very important to authorize yourself to try and try again, etc. It's also important to invent your own rules, because purpose, you can find it, you can buy that. So you must invent your thing. And of course, it's very important to foster ownership, because in the end, the idea is that it's going to live for itself, and that it's not a gift you're giving to someone or to the company. It's something that comes from the company and that can live for itself. So you can find on YouTube a movie. I think it was really a nice experimentation we had. We put together all our managers, so 100%, in fact, 100 people. And we tried, in the morning, we presented the result of all this process and the projet d'entreprise, the purpose. And then we asked them together to produce films, to explain it in their own way, with their own problematics, to their colleagues. And so the day itself, we launched the process. The day itself, it was already very, very much collective, and not only collective among 10 people. So I read on the web somewhere, I don't remember where, purpose should be far more than words, and yes, it can be far more than words. This is the result of our process at Thalys. Of course, it seems very simple, and as Joël Robuchon said, that was the goal. So the purpose is the why, of course, and our why was more Europe for all. More, it means that we need to go further, we need to go more, we need growth. It's in our DNA to grow, and if we've not been created only to do it like that and to stay within the same framework with the same figures. For all, of course, I think you all understand why it's very important. We are Thalys trained, so we transport so many kinds of people, business people, tourist travelers, so it's very important. But our movement, our decision was that we didn't want only a why. We wanted a why which immediately would function with a what and with a how. And so what? It's the 5 guidelines we decided all together to decide everything in the company, for the product as well as the company itself. So at Thalys, it became pleasant, easy, European, reliable, and at best speed. And of course, the magical thing inside that is that altogether it makes peers with peers. And so that's the philosophy we wanted to enhance, and we wanted to be the global way we would work together. So in those few words, we had a call to action. We had far clear guidelines. We had a philosophy and a way of working, and we had this famous purpose towards more Europe for all. The question is, what is it really in day-to-day life? Because that is communication, things for communicating people. So what is it really? Really, it became 5 very easy guidelines to decide about. And what is funny, if you come to Thalys, that you're going to have in some meetings people saying, is it multicultural enough? We can't do that, it's not easy, or things like that. Can we do it more quick, or can we take time to do it? So it's really things we always think about when we decide and when we lead projects. Of course, it's very important for the directors and for the board to use it also. So all the strategic projects have been also assessed with these ideas and presented with this reading grid. It works for every kind of project. For example, this is our refurbishment program, and each program will have its own lecture, but it works for all of them. And what is really funny is that it became a new vocabulary inside the company, and then you can say, wow, it worked. If you come at Thalys, and we've got colleagues there, you will see that sometimes we say, oh, it's not peers. And we must tell people, maybe the persons who are there with you, who are not from the company, don't understand at all what it is when you say that. So we can say, no, we won't do that because it's not peers, as if it was, I don't know, yellow or orange. Yes, we must do that because it's 100% peers. And we are really like that when we say that. So it's also a new way of working. And again, the vocabulary is very important because each of the colleagues, each of the employees can make a proposal with that idea. And so they created peers breakfast. They created peers trainings. Peers trainings, it's when the trainings are made not by external consultants, but by yourself for the colleagues. We launched new partnerships, for example, the partnership with Vivatech, when we met Sabri. And we launched a new body. We had, of course, the comité de direction. We launched a new body with N-2, as we say in French, which is really nice. So all this changed the way we work together. And then it came to CSR. And that's very important to me to say that we didn't start with CSR, but then we came to CSR. And it's the same thing, we didn't start with brand and communication, but we ended with brand and communication. It's very important to me because when you're a small company, you don't have necessarily people who are leading your CSR and your sustainable stuff. You don't already always have that, but you always have people leading the business and people leading the social relationships. So you can start the purpose process from where you are. And it, in my opinion, it always leads to changing the world in the end, but you don't need to start with the idea of changing the world. So at Thalys, clearly, the story started with action and business, and then it came to culture and CSR. The result is that after 6 months, we had 96% people of the company aware of peers. So, as I said, it worked very well. What came quickly is that we had plus 35% thinking that strategic information was clear, which is quite the beginning of the story, and 17% people clearly supporting the strategy, plus 17, not 17, otherwise it would be. So, conclusion, is it for customers, for business, for employees, for capitalism, etc.? Probably it helps on all those dimensions. Is it business, CSR, or marketing? Probably the three of them. Is it short-term or long-term? I will have a word about that afterwards. And is it inspiring or vain? You will tell me. In my opinion, of course. I think it's quite inspiring and it's quite concrete. So it's an efficient process. Whether should you want only to align, to get more strategic alignment? Should you want to increase the employee buy-in? But also, should you want to change the world? So the 10% coalition to change the world around the French government is something telling things with this story. Of course, the common point is that you need to say what you do. That's the beginning of it. And you need to do what you say. About short-term and long-term, maybe some of you are going to ask me, why did you do that in a fast-changing world? And why is it necessary to boost up your identity when you don't know what's going to happen afterwards? And probably some of you read about the combination, the process of combination of Eurostar and Thalys that I started. And my answer, and I think it's quite a collective answer at Thalys, is that it's quite useful to know very well who you are, even when you are in a process of mixing with other people or becoming bigger or I don't know what. So now maybe you could decide for yourself if you think it's inspiring or vain, but I hope you would say a little bit inspiring. Thank you.